I'm consulting, you know, various other companies from everywhere. And of course, I'm a speaker of at various events, and I also won the Evo Game Design Challenge in free-to-play, which, you know, is a small little prize you can actually take on. These are some of the titles I worked upon. You can Google my name and all these Amiga and Commodore 64 titles will pop up. There are just too many. Back then we just had like 3 months development time, that was it. Today is 2 to 3 years, so that's how times change. You see some online games here, which I consulted Ubisoft on. Settlers Online is one of the most successful ones. Here, Might and Magic Heroes Online, Anno Online, and there's an upcoming game I have worked on called Assassin's Creed Identity. It will be released on smartphones and on iPad mid of this year. I worked on some stuff in retail games like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where what they call post-launch monetization is actually pretty similar to free-to-play. So they try to monetize engaged users even more after they bought the game. So, how I dissect. With dissect, I mean that I take really successful games out there, free-to-play games, and try to take them apart and see how they work. That's part of my job, to understand, to share that knowledge with my clients. And some of these dissections I transform into talks like this. So how do I dissect these successful games? The first part is what I call metrics. Metrics means that I try to gather as many metrics as I can from all the sources. These can be public tracking tools. There are many of them in the net, like any web tracking services and so on. And of course, I research the company's PR and statements. So there's, you know, a lot of PR coming out of companies, and they say, you know, we have 40 million players. But this PR has to be taken with a grain of salt, because whenever they claim something, you have to translate it into the real numbers. Because if a company says they have 40 million players, they actually mean they have 40 million registrations. That doesn't mean 40 million players are playing it like today. With King, we are lucky, they're public listed. They went public last year. And the cool thing about that is that on the shareholder reports, you have all the data, and they have to be truthful, because otherwise they would go to court. Then of course I play the game. And that's a tough part, because most of the good games I have played, in order to dissect them, I have to go into the game without any pre-knowledge, so that I know how the game talks to me when you, for the first time, engage the game itself. I play, of course, without these import stores where they have like stacks and stacks of hardware, and you go in there and buy a PC notebook. So you buy the PC notebook, and he pulls it out of the shelf and gives it to you, gets your money, and you're leaving the store with that box. This is the feeling you get when you have just spent like $500 on a notebook. Now, if you go to an Apple store and buy a notebook, and you leave the store, you're feeling different. And how they do that is really important, even to know for these games, because the stores and what they're selling to you should leave you with the same feeling. That it's actually really cool to pay for, because you're feeling happy about it, you're feeling more powerful. You know, this is like the feeling they should get. And I try to measure that with this $10. I try to buy the stuff which is really, really important for me. I don't buy fluff and stuff, just the really most useful things. And these are usually the ones which are the top sellers in the game. Now the next step is that I increase my payment to $50 and see what else I can buy, like the side stuff, which is usually the second most selling items in these games. So I make a list of these and see how the game actually, you know, handles this, how fast they consume, how fast they're used, you know, how much money could I spend in this game per day, per week. Bad games kind of cap this, so you're spending $10 a day and that's it. You just cannot buy any meaningful stuff anymore on that day. Good games, you know, basically have money sinks, so you can spend as much as you like. And of course, I try to analyze the changes of gameplay. So, let's take a look into the metrics I found from King.com. As I said, a little bit caution, because some of the metrics are from PR, so you have to translate them. This is the financial results of the top 10 gaming companies. The source here is Yuzu. And you can see that King.com is the eighth largest gaming company in the world. Number one is Tencent, the Chinese giant. You can find this data in the net, by the way. You just go to Yuzu and Google that. Or I guess my slides will be available soon in the online anyway. And you see that they have the Q1 financial year results in millions. So King.com in the Q1 2014 did $641 million in 3 months. That's a whole lot of money. Actually, that's more money than most gaming companies do in the West. And all King.com has is, and this is not meant evil, right? All King.com has are stupid match-3 games. And with these match-3 games, they do 600 million per quarter. It even gets worse. If you go to the latest results, this is really small print. This is the update from the last financial quarter. You have to realize that most of these companies run their financial year different than the fiscal year, meaning that it actually ends end of March. That's when their financial year ends. They did over $2 billion revenue in 1 year. 2 billion. That's twice the size of Ubisoft. That's, you know, that's huge, that's big. With just more little match-3 games. And everybody here should have answers why these games work, why they monetize and how they monetize. Because it's important, because if this company can do 2.4 billion, there should be no reason why, if you do a cool game, you should do like 100 million a year. That should be possible if they can do this match-3 games. Their cash reserves is 1 billion. They have 1 billion on the bank. You can imagine that King.com has no problem buying any gaming company in the world. Theoretically, they could even buy Ubisoft. It's not possible because the shares are not available, but theoretically it could. So, some more interesting data, which is from the shareholder report, which is really interesting. On the left, you have the monthly active users. This is how many users they have playing individually every month. And they're closing to 500 million users. 500 million. So they are bigger than many social networks. They are bigger than most countries in this world. That's how many players play their game. 500 million. We have 7 billion people on this planet. And they have like, you know, 1/14 of them playing it. They have more players than there are Arabs in this world. And that, you know, that gets you thinking. It's an incredible number. It's such a big number that the human brain doesn't really comprehend it. Here is the gross bookings per channel, which is maybe how much money they do for each channel. And you can see the orange one is the mobile revenue, and the green one is from the web, which means basically social networks like Facebook. You can see that over 70% of the revenue is coming from mobile. So King.com was a company which was really fast switching from Facebook to mobile. Everybody here should remember how cool and sexy Facebook was, making Facebook games. Huge, there's 1 billion people, so let's make a game so we can have 50 million people playing it. No one talks about that anymore. No one is totally unsexy now, because mobile is like the new big thing. But King still invests into Facebook, and there's a reason for that. The main reason they do that is for user acquisition. So they can pull users from Facebook into their game on Facebook, and pull them from the Facebook game into the mobile version, and the saved game data is exchanged. Once users go from Facebook to mobile, they stay there. They never come back. And that should teach you a lesson that Facebook is not the, you know, a good platform for games anymore. It's actually the mobile one. Down here, you have the number of monthly unique payers. So how many payers they have per month compared to the monthly active users. It's, you know, hard to read. But in quarter 3, 2014, they had 8.7 million people who paid for their games. That sounds a lot, but it's not. There are nearly 9 million people paying from 500 million. Is that good? No, it's not. They have 500 million people, and from these 500 million, 491 million are playing for free and never paying. That's actually a pretty bad number, and as you can see, it's declining. So they have less and less payers in their games, and there are reasons for that. A lot of reasons. I will show you later on some of them. But nevertheless, this is a number called conversion rate, and conversion rate is really low in these games. Another number is, you know, gross bookings per revenue. That's kind of, you know, if you want to go into detail, how much they spend on marketing, how much they spend on development, etc. King.com is a big company with a couple of thousand employees, but measured to the revenue, the number of employees is really, really small. So the per head income inside King is really high. The right chart is interesting because it shows the non-Candy Crush bookings. As you know, Candy Crush Saga is the biggest game King.com has, but they're having a problem. They cannot make a proper sequel. They cannot make a game which is as successful as Candy Crush. And for them, it's important to show their shareholders, not us, their shareholders, that they're making more and more money with games which are not Candy Crush. But nevertheless, in a quarter, they're doing like 1/3 now with like 10 different games besides Candy Crush. But none of these games are actually as big as Candy Crush. So this is traffic measured in millions compared to other companies on Facebook. So you see that King.com is #1. Then there's Zynga and Social Point and some smaller ones. Most of these on the left, you don't know. You don't know what Civic Hearts is, Peak Games, Fun Plus Game. No one knows these companies anymore, but they're having huge traffic. A couple of years ago, when Facebook was big, everybody of you knew who was big on Facebook. Now no one knows anymore. There's one German company here called Ruga. I'm really proud of that they're still managing to do that. But nevertheless, it shows that mobile is king. This is like the #1 format for these games you should go for. This is the traffic of various sites compared to each other. So you see that Facebook has 1.4 billion people on it. That's an amazing number. You say WeChat, which is the Chinese social portal. You see King is #3, and then come LinkedIn, Twitter, Amazon. Meaning that King is actually larger than Zynga, Pandora, EA together. King has twice the traffic of Amazon. It's an incredible number, but it shows that if they don't have that many payers, then they have a problem in their hands. This is data from App Annie. App Annie is a site where you can actually measure the chart position over time and some revenue data. This is the most boring chart ever. It shows 2 lines, but believe me, every company in this world would love to have this boring chart. Simply it shows that Candy Crush is #1, and there's no one even in competition. It just stays like a flat line on #1. That's important for them because Candy Crush is the largest game, it makes most of their money, although the money is declining in Candy Crush. So Candy Crush is actually, might halve their traffic in a couple of years. This is Pyramid Solitaire Saga, one of my favorite games from King, and it's really important to actually, as a proof what I'm saying here, I will come to that later. And you see that it makes a maxing, but nevertheless it's top 10 in some categories, and it makes decent amount of money for them. It makes so much money that everybody of you would love to have this game in their portfolio. But for King, this game is really, really small. So this is how, how relative the size is. This is Bluebyte Saga, my second favorite game. I played that all the way through when it still was on Facebook. There's an interesting story about Bluebyte. Bluebyte Saga was the first huge successful game for King.com on Facebook. That's where they get all the money from to actually start this up. When they went mobile, they ported Bluebyte Saga to mobile and it completely failed because the control scheme of Bluebyte could not be ported to mobile properly. Now Candy Crush, which wasn't really big on Facebook at that time, was ported to mobile and was a smash success for the reason that the controls are actually very easy to port. So you just swipe, the stones together. That's the reason why Bluebyte is no longer the #1 title. It's simply a control problem, which shows that if you ever port a game to iOS, you have to adapt the whole game and not just like porting it and trying to make it work. Bluebyte Saga 2, The Charts, which is a sequel where they actually fixed the controls. It's still not as successful, but nevertheless, it took them like a year and a half to actually figure out the control scheme which works for that game. So in terms of monetization, this is data from the shareholder report, which was compiled by gamesbrief.com. It's a website I urge you to follow anyway. The guy who does it is a really cool guy. He's a little bit crazy, but he does some cool stuff. So Candy Crush Saga has 93 million daily active users. So nowadays there are 100 million people playing every single day. That's how big that game is. And you see that all the other games have, Pet Rescue Saga has 15 million, Farm Hero Saga has 8 million, etc., and Bubble is just 3. You see that compared to this number, 93 million or close to 100 million, all the other games are really minor. King has 128 million daily active users, which is huge. That's more than, I can name you 100 successful free-to-play games. If you count them together, they actually have less users than King.com has in their games. That's how big they are, and as I said, over 70% of the revenue is coming from their mobile audience. That's where the money is. Contrary to everything what people say, that people don't pay on mobile, that's actually a lie. That the conversion rates are really low on mobile, that's a lie as well. I can explain you that in a second, why that actually doesn't work. And you see that they have 12 million monthly pairs, representing 4% conversion. You all heard, the conversion rate on mobile. What number you always hear? Anyone here? Anyone has any number? 5, 1%? Yeah, you're hearing various stories, like 1%, 2%, 3%. But have you ever heard about a game who has 10% conversion? Anyone? I can name you 5 games who have that on mobile. I can name you 1 game who has 50% conversion. And you don't know that simply because you believe in the average numbers. And average is exactly what the problem is. If you have 100 games with 3% conversion, and you have 1 game with 10%, this 1 game, the peak, won't show up in the statistic, in the average. That's the reason why everybody here in this room believes on mobile you have less than 3% conversion. And that's wrong. There are many games out there who have more. Clash of Clans has 12% conversion. Puzzle & Dragons in Japan has 50%. They have over 12% outside of Japan. There are games out there who have that. Now, if you have this high conversion, it allows you to live with a much smaller user base. So you could have, let's say you have 1 million users, and you have a 10% conversion rate. So 1 million users per month, 10% is 100,000 people paying, times $20 is 2 million a month, is 24 million a year. Now that sounds sexy, right? It's just 1 million users, that's all you need. But there are 2 billion smartphone users out there, so you just have to address them. Don't believe average numbers, you have to dig deeper to actually analyze this number. So, 1 game, Candy Crush, makes up to nearly 80% of the revenue, and this is the problem they currently try to solve, that they have other hits out there. But if you see all the games they do, the only type of game they actually can do is casual match-3 games. They had a method to test them, etc., but basically, their major problem now is reach. If they have 500 million users today, it means there are a lot of users leaving the game as well, right? That's normal, users just stop playing. So they need to acquire more users. But if you only have 7 billion people on this planet, they're running out of people to target. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing to acquire users. A lot of money. That's the reason why user acquisition has become so expensive. To acquire users has not risen to new heights because users are more expensive. The reason is because these behemoths of companies are spending so much money. And I can tell you, if you have a 4% conversion like they have, on average per user, they're doing less than $1. How much does a user cost nowadays? If you're lucky, $1.50. So they actually cannot acquire users for the money they do. So how do they do that? What they do is that they know exactly when they acquire 1 user, how many users are coming with that user. No one plays alone. Everybody here plays with family, daughter, wife, girlfriend, neighbor, everybody has that. So every user they acquire are getting 2 or 3 users with them. And what they do is that if on average, let's assume they acquire 1 user and there are 3 users coming with them. So they add the number of dollars they do, let's say $4, and they're spending from 3 users the money to user acquisition and just keep 1 of the users as profit. That's how they do that. And not many companies can afford this. That's the reason why the prices are high per user. It's King.com, it's Supercell, it's many companies out there. If you just add the top 10 companies who are spending a lot of money in user acquisition, you have like over 1.5 to 2 billion per quarter spent on advertising. Good luck for you guys trying to find channels where you can still afford users. This is the problem we have. And they can afford it, but you can't, mean that you have to find their own ways around the problem. As you can see, they're doing over half of their revenue in America. So there are a lot of payers in America, contrary to belief that Americans do not like free-to-play. They're complaining about free-to-play. Free-to-play is evil, free-to-play. No, all this discussion about free-to-play is coming from the US in the recent years. But what they forget is that free-to-play is actually 15 years old. It came from Korea 15 years ago. So they're complaining in the last 2 years a lot. But what they don't see is that most of the revenue free-to-play is coming from America. So the gamers already pay freely, no problem at all. It's actually the industry who have a problem with it, not the customer. So this is another small little thing. It's my personal rant why people are complaining about free-to-play. For me, it's the coolest thing on earth. You can play for free, try for free, and you can spend as much money as you like. So I use 3 games to actually show you some patterns. I use 3 games for a reason, because with 1 game I could show you some little details, but most of you should have played at least 1 of their games. But if I show you 3 games, actually you see similarities, and these similarities are pretty important. So the first game is Candy Crush Saga. Candy Crush Saga, start screen is a logo and a play button in the middle, which is kind of pink. Sorry. And Candy Crush Saga is pretty easy. They have a map which has a sequel road where you play one level after the other, so you have to finish one level in order to progress for the next. This is a really easy concept. You click on all of these buttons, and before you enter it, you can actually send people extra moves. This is like the social recruitment thing, so the more friends you have, the more moves you can actually get. And once you enter the game, they actually show you what your goals are. And here's the first oddity. This screen pops up before you enter the level. And these buttons you have here, these boosters, well, the laser doesn't work on this wall, you can buy them there. So before you enter a level, they show you wares which can help you in a level. But you don't know the problem yet, so how can you decide if this is a proper helper which you can actually use at the level? You can't know. So this monetization option is for users who already failed in a level. So you fail in a level like 10 times, and then you're annoyed and you just buy that booster and bam, you finish the level. And that means they're actually using negative feedback from the game because you failed to actually monetize you. And this is actually a bad way of doing it. They're monetizing your frustration. And monetizing frustration is not really a positive thing to do. But they're doing it continuously. Now, if you think further along, if they monetize better the more you fail in a level, if you're a monetization designer, what would you do? You would make sure that people fail really often. You would make that sure, because then they monetize better. Because the more frustrated they are, the more likely is that they pay. Here comes the catch. You don't know when users are actually quitting the game because they cannot finish that level. So what they do is that they measure your personal frustration, how much you fail, and they know your failure rate. Let's say you fail a level 10 times and you no longer play the game. 3 days afterwards, you actually enter the game again. You know what happens? First try, level, you did it. Some people, everybody's like, yeah, I saw that. Now this can be that everybody says, yeah, happened to me too. They're doing this on purpose. They know you're back, you were frustrated, you didn't play every day, but you used to, meaning let's make this level easy so that you're happy and you rush a couple of levels through. Meaning that they're changing the level, the difficulty, dynamically on your frustration. That's not a good way of doing it. Everybody should have equal chances in the game. You should not change the game just to monetize better individually. That's not a good way of doing it, that's not fair. But nevertheless, you can actually prove that, because if you play Candy Crush a lot of times, you will see this effect really often. On the right, Candy Crush, really easy, match 3, you just push around this stuff to have various goals. But there's some interesting things in the game itself. It's one of the most successful games on this planet, so you actually have to play it. So, next game is Bluebyte Saga 2. Similarity to the start screen, identical, right? Logo, figure, button. They have a kind of UI construction set, and all their games are using it. Because they know through hundreds of hours of A/B testing what is the most optimal way of representing the game, so they're using this structure. Now the cool thing about that is that when you see their structure and you know it works for them because they tested the hell out of it, you no longer need to test it. If you want to know how your start screen should look like, this is it. That's how easy it is. It's all open out there. And they have a new game down there, so if you're ever frustrated with the game, you can click on the corner and you actually go to another game from them. So they do advertising for their own games. So Bluebyte, same thing. On the left side, they have this meta map. So you have a single road, you have to finish one level after the other, and depending how well you finish, you get 1, 2, or 3 stars. And before you enter the level, you can actually send lives, identical structure like Candy Crush. And if you enter the level itself, you have to shoot bubbles, and the bubbles remove other bubbles there. And you have to free the ghost in the middle. As you can see, you have 2 colored bubbles you can actually choose from, which are seen here. And the color of the bubbles are very important. Let's see, I have 2 blue bubbles. Can I shoot the bubbles on this level in a way that I actually have 2 or more bubbles on one place? No, I can't. I actually have 2 blue bubbles to do that. So, for me, these 2 moves are for nothing because I cannot solve anything in this level. So I could actually monetize in the game and buy the rainbow bubble, which matches every color, it costs money, or I can have the explosion bubble, this red one, and actually blow stuff away. Again, they are using the colors to they monetize by fiddling around with your game. They're actually cheating. Okay, next game, Pyramid Solitaire Saga. Guess what? This screen looks identical to the other ones. The logo, the figure, and the game button, and of course the advertising on the lower right. Again, here we have the metagame map on the left. This is a game actually finished. I played through all the levels because this game had one feature which let me actually look behind the scenes of the game itself. If before you play, you can buy the boosts. Again, they monetize before they show you the puzzle. And then you go into the game, and it's a kind of solitaire with certain tricks and added features. Now, the thing which you can do here is that you can buy a boost. This boost shows you the cards which are face down. So these golden cards which you see here, they actually turn around, so you can see what cards are on the table. If you know what cards are in your stack, which you can take a look in there as well by paying, you actually can analyze if this level is solvable at all. You know which cards are coming, you know the table, and you can permutate through all the possibilities and know, can this level be solved with the deck you have? And believe me, many of the levels cannot be solved. That means if you cannot solve them, the only way to solve them is by using pay boosts. And this can be proven on this game. It's a little bit harder to actually prove in Bluebyte, but you know, this is where things are going. So let's see the design formula, the similarities between these games. So what they do is that they have a core game loop. Match 3 core game loop, solitaire core game loop. You can use any core game loop which is cool. Tetris, Space Invaders, don't care. Just use anything which is like fun and you know you can actually play it endlessly. And the core game loop they design with variations. So they have the core game loop, like let's say Space Invaders. You shoot aliens coming down, right? And variations means there's suddenly more Space Invaders coming, or you have double guns, or there's more protection, or suddenly this auto-scrolling. You know, whatever variations you put in, they put into certain levels and group them together. This is what I call either extras or variants, because it actually adds to the core game loop. And then they sort them by progress. Progress, I mean that if you have one level which auto-scrolls suddenly, they put all auto-scrolling levels into one group and put them into one sector on the map. This is what they do, and they sort them by difficulty. Actually, they don't sort them by difficulty. What they do is that they sort by difficulty, but in the middle, there's one really difficult level. This is what I call paywall level. There's one level all the time where everybody fails. Everybody of you will fail on the same level. Interesting thing is, when you take notes where you fail, really often, like this frustrating level everybody talks about, take notes which level it is. Go to another King.com game, play these. Take note about the level number. You will see that the frustrating paywall level is always identical. If it's level 13 in one game, it will be 13 in the other game. It's their design pattern. They know from a lot of testing, you know, when they should put in the paywall level in order to actually, you know, raise their revenue and the conversion. The next step they do is that they sort these games for their metagame map. So one level after the other. And then they have a new area or new sector coming up, and usually in this sector a new game element pops up, like auto-scrolling or the auto-spelling chocolate in Candy Crush Saga. You know, a lot of new elements are coming in. And of course they show the stars. The stars is your performance in the level, 1, 2, 3 stars. In the beginning, King.com had a system where the more stars you collected in a given area, the more bonuses you became. Like you could get pay items or you know other cool bonuses there. They removed that feature completely for whatever reason, but it was really important because it gave users a reason to replay. So imagine you play level 4, you only have 1 star, but you finish the level, you just continue. At the end of the area, it actually shows you, if I would have finished level 4 with 2 stars, I get this bonus for free. What would you do? You return to level 4, you replay it until you have 2 stars. So this gives lifetime. This is a really important concept, but King.com actually removed it. Why? I don't know, but I thought, yeah, they actually invented this. With Bluebyte Saga on Facebook, they had that in. And it was a beautiful system, and I recommend that to everyone, but somehow they removed it. So, in terms of monetization, let's see what they monetize and how they monetize. And I actually say cheating down there, because the game does not only cheat on you by raising difficulty levels, you know, depending on your performance, but when you monetize and you pay for the game, you're actually cheating as well. So you can pay back, right? By paying money. Well, we'll see. So the first thing is, there are social lives. So if you have friends, you can ask your friends to send you lives. You have like 5 tries. If you fail 5 times, you either have to wait until you can play again, or you can refill by money, or friends are actually sending you the lives and you can continue playing. So people are actually spamming all their friends. Everybody of here remembers when Facebook was full of game spam, until Facebook removed that and put them into one corner. Then the virality was over, so the golden days of free user acquisition were gone. But nevertheless, the system itself still works. And they monetize when you fail. So I don't have any moves anymore, so I can actually pay for 5 more moves. And if you take a look, this is 9 gold I pay. How much money that is just to get 5 moves? It's really expensive. If you play 10 levels and write down how many moves you did and count that into this 9 gold, you will see that every move is worth a couple of cents, and if you add that up, each level is like 10 euro worth. The bad thing on this request is that the button to actually pay is green. So the give up button, like I failed, I don't want to pay, is red. Red in most cultures is actually don't press me, like the stop button. So they lure you into pressing the green button. And everybody who played this game, and you have free gold in the beginning, by accident pressed the green button. Every single player I asked has confirmed that. This is called clickbait, and clickbait means it's an evil system. You should not use that, but they're using it freely. So they're gobbling up the gold from players by just luring them pressing the wrong button. And that's not nice for 5 moves. 5 moves is nothing. Usually when you click this button and you have these 5 moves, you fail anyway. You can make a list of how often you bought the 5 moves, and if you succeeded or not, and you will see that 90% of the time the 5 moves didn't do anything to you. But people still click that. So next thing, before the level comes, they show you all the boosts you can buy to help you in the level. And in the level itself, sometimes they have the in-game boost down there, and if you run out, you can buy more. Now, these boosts are all consumables. 50 cents to $1 per booster set. Like you get 3 or 5 boosters per $1, and they're gone really quick. Now, what does a booster do? So you have a level, which is a puzzle, it's a challenge, solve me. And once you solve that puzzle, you're really proud, right? I solved that level, I solved it before my neighbor did, and you can brag about it. Listen here, I did it. These boosts remove the challenge. They cheat. So when you use boosts, you're cheating in a puzzle, so it's easier to solve. What does that mean for the customer if he buys that and he solves the level with one of these boosts? Will he go to his neighbor and brag about it? No, he won't. What he actually will do is, I won't tell, I just cheated. This is the feeling when you buy in their games which they're left with. No one talks about that they're actually using cheats to solve the levels. You don't feel good. You haven't solved the level by your wits or brains. You solved the level because you cheated. And cheating is not really fun, but they're making money about it. And they're making money because people are frustrated about certain levels and just want to get on with it. They're making money with what I call peer pressure and ads. Advertising, they recruit users into their own games, so once you're frustrated, you say, another level, I'm just stuck. Let's try the other game. You just press on the corner and bam, you're in the other game. They had a system in there, when you in the other game had a certain level, you actually get bonuses in another game. They did that, but that doesn't work. That actually backfired because all the people of Candy Crush were just playing the game until they got the boost and never went back again. So that was a negative business, that didn't work. But what's interesting here is that on every level they show the Facebook picture besides the level. So you know which friend of yours has progressed further than you. You see their progress when they're actually moving through the level. And that's what I call peer pressure. And of course, if your friend's already off the map, you try to, run after him, so you actually pay to make the levels faster, if you're in this competition way. I don't care about how far my friends are, but nevertheless, some people, for them it's really important. And as I said, clickbait. This is actually a worse clickbait than the first one I showed you. Because the button is larger, it's green, and the button to cancel is this small little X. Like close this window. That you have to press to continue without paying. So this is like not a sexy way to actually do things. Clickbait is something invented by Facebook, by the Facebook games, and it's no longer modern. So most games who are successful no longer do that. If you look at the top 10 games on iOS, for example, the most successful games today no longer do clickbait. None of them do. And if they don't do it and it's still successful, you should not do that as well. This is the heritage from King because they're a web company and they're coming from Facebook where this was normal. So, summary. They use peer pressure as a conversion driver. Peer pressure means that if your friend is better than you, if you pay, you can actually catch up. Social lives, selling power items, or what I say, they're selling cheats, they remove the challenge. They have a really low conversion in their games, less than 4%, as we found out, but they still have really high revenue. And that shows that the guys who pay for the game pay a lot. And that's what I call whale hunting. So they're actually in to monetize by high spenders. And this is their goal, to recruit these high spenders. But whenever you talk to successful free-to-play companies, they say if you just bet on whales, it's a bad thing. It is bad because your company is based on a very few people who pay compared to the number of players who don't pay. So if these few payers change, they're bored, they change the game, there's a better one, etc., your company will be in trouble. As Carsten had a chart yesterday, really nice, if you have seen his chart, 50% of the revenue is done by 10% of your payers. So your high rollers do half of your revenue. But all the rest, 90% of your payers, is doing the other half of the revenue. This balance is perfect. When you achieve that in your game, this is how you would stick. Because if you annoy the high payers, only half of your revenue is affected. If you annoy the low payers, only the other half is affected. It's much more balanced. And let's face it, if someone pays for a game, he won't leave the game. He's invested. Meaning that every payer counts that he won't leave, and he's cheap to actually retain, because he paid, he invested, he won't leave. So if you have only a few payers, but they pay high, if they leave, it hurts. If 90% of your payers, are doing half of the other revenue, they're a lot more than the high rollers, but they don't leave as well. And they're much more worth simply because they don't leave. And if they don't leave, they're recruiting other players because they're just, hey, have you played this cool game? Most of you have played a cool game because it was recommended by you, by someone, your friend, your neighbor, whoever. This is 50% of all user acquisition is word by mouth. And this is ruined if you have just a few payers. So in terms of low conversion, a couple of reasons. The first reason they have a low conversion is their target audience. Most of the target audience is female. Females don't pay as much and as high as males do. Why ever? Maybe it has to do with how they grow up, or that they actually used to save money in their household while the man actually spends it on TV and expensive cars, who knows? But nevertheless, women do not pay as well as men. On the other hand, when women embrace the game, it suddenly goes boom. And most of the King.com games are very compatible with female gameplay. The other thing is that casual games have low conversion by default. Why is that? Because a casual game, just because it's so simple, seems not really worth to pay for. If you go to a store and buy a game for $60, like an Assassin's Creed or whatever is out there on the shelf, you feel that the production value is actually worth that money. In a really simple casual game, it's not. And that's the reason why many people actually don't pay for that. If you have a really complex game on iOS, which is still easily playable, and accessibility and so on, people pay much more likely because actually the game is worth it. So this is one of the reasons why casual games have the low conversion, because people think for this simple game to play, nah, I won't. Specifically because most of the casual games are really, really expensive. They have a problem, what I call content war. So when Candy Crush started, it had 300 levels. And when you were at the end, you stopped playing because you finished the game, right? So you just played another game. The danger that you never come back to the game is high. So they had to add levels at a really fast pace in order to keep all the player base. Now Candy Crush has over 1,000 levels. The problem with that is that when they have a new user coming in, let's say my friend recommended me the game. He's already playing 1 year Candy Crush. And I just completed level 20, and I'm so proud of it. So I tell my friend, listen, I just completed level 20. And I said, yeah, I'm just stuck in level 1020. He's saying, wait a second, what? I have to actually play 1,000 levels to catch up? Nah, I won't. This is a huge number. So the number of levels actually costs users because users think it's never possible to finish the game. So this is another problem they have because they don't have systematic design. You cannot replay level endlessly in order to gain something. Paying is a problem for them. As I said, it destroys the challenge of every single level. You can cheat your way through the whole game. It feels like cheating, that's the worst effect, because once you actually cheated and you have that bad feeling, you might not even spend anymore. And it removes this really gratifying feeling that you finally beat that level. It did not. So how can you change their monetization system that you have a positive feeling about spending, that you don't have the feeling that you cheat, that you actually brag about it to your neighbor. I used that superpower in this level and suddenly, you know, I solved it, and the neighbor said, oh, this is so cool, I want to use the superpower as well. No one says this ever about King.com games. But there's one game who actually managed just to do that. They changed the King.com system in a way that it's really cool to spend money. I will tell you in a second which one it is. They have negative peer pressure as a paying user, so you know, once you paid, you won't tell anyone. So I didn't pay, no. I didn't cheat in this level, no, it just, you know, was my power. And of course, the player has the feeling, the nagging feeling, that the game actually cheats to force spending. So if you control the game, if you measure yourself how it works, you will see that there's some levels actually really, really hard, and at some point, it's as easy as it ever was. And you say, what's wrong now? So what did it do wrong yesterday? And this proves some of the points. So, Pyramid Solitaire Saga cheats by having giving you identical cards as they're on the table. Because if they're identical, you cannot put them, you know, you cannot attach them. This is how they actually shuffle the deck. Bubble Saga is not giving you the colors you need. Candy Crush Saga is the color mix not compatible, etc. You can actually, you know, analyze that yourself, specifically with Pyramid Solitaire Saga, that this is happening. And they're doing this, you know, to raise conversion, to raise revenue, and to fight the content war. But unless a professor of mathematics from MIT analyzes the random distribution of this game, they always can claim, listen, this is all random. If it's all random, this can happen. Okay, if it's all random, but it happens to every one of us, it's no longer random. That's my argument. But you know, it could be a mind trick, because the mind remembers the bad things happening in the game, not the positive things. So if you play 10 levels and you're just stuck on one level, you remember this one level. You don't remember the other levels. So it could be a mind trick. It could be me personally complaining about it, about the game, although I love their games. But on the other hand, you know, there should be someone actually analyzing that with pure mathematics. You know, I didn't study mathematics, so I don't know. My recommendation is that you should play Gummy Drop from Big Fish, which is another match 3 game, where they actually turn the whole spending issue to have a positive feeling. So for everyone here who has, you know, who want to learn about monetization design, you should play Candy Crush, play it for 10, 20, 30 levels, then play Gummy Drop for 10, 20, 30 levels, and repeat that and see how different these games are. And you will see that Gummy Drop has a much more positive, reason to continue playing, because they have so many cool systems in there. They even have a system in there that you will love to replay a level. In Candy Crush, it's like, no. You know, I had a hard time beating that level, I don't want to replay that. In here, you're happy to replay levels. All this stuff which is negative about King games, they actually turn into a positive feeling. They have other problems, they don't have dual currency, they have an inflation problem, lots of other things, but on the other hand, they have some really good designs in here compared to that. And this is good as a monetization design to learn that although both games monetize on cheats, one of them does it in a positive feeling way, the other one does it in a negative feeling way. And for everyone here, positive feeling when spending money is cool. Negative feeling is not cool. So my recommendation, if you want to analyze 2 games, play Candy Crush Saga and Gummy Drop alongside each other, and you will learn a whole lot about monetization motivation. So thank you very much for listening.